Hello, welcome to another episode of the Keystone Cannabis Conversation. In our first episode, when we discussed the details of the medical cannabis law that passed here recently in Pennsylvania, we informed you that the law only allows patients to consume cannabis in specified forms. These forms, again, are oils, pills, creams, gels, ointments, tinctures, and non-whole plant forms that can be used for vaporization.
When most people think of cannabis, the commonly form that they think of is its natural state, which is flower, which is grown and typically harvested and dried and is smoked or vaporized, and also can be processed into multiple forms of consumption. However, under PA law, the cannabis flower will not be sold for the purpose of smoking or vaporizing in the beginning stages of the program.
So the grower processor groups who become licensed by the state will be limited in the products that they produce for sale in dispensaries. They'll be able to grow the cannabis into flowers, and then they'll be forced to take those cannabis plants and process them into one or multiple different acceptable forms like oils or the creams. Processing cannabis into these alternative forms can be a difficult task, and it requires patience and precision in order to ensure that the end product works efficiently for the patient and for their individual condition.
Many of these processed products are unfamiliar with most medical cannabis patients, especially those who are very new to medical cannabis. There is no form that is right or wrong. There is no form that one patient will take just for one specific conditions. It's very broad, it's very open. In fact, one form can be used to treat multiple patients in multiple illnesses. Similarly, one patient or one condition can also be treated with multiple different forms of medical cannabis at the same time.
We're going to start out by discussing the form that is becoming possibly the second most recognizable form of medical cannabis besides the natural form flower, and that is the cannabis oils. Cannabis oil is often very dark in color with a thick and sticky consistency. There are several ways to process the cannabis flower into these oil forms, and some of the most popular methods to extract the oil is through butane, CO2, or alcohol. The most pure form is probably alcohol to use. Regardless of the method or solution used in the extraction, though, if it's done properly, the solution is filtered out in the end process, and when it's completely filtered out, it should leave behind a 100% pure and solventless cannabis oil that no longer contains any of the solvents that were used to extract it initially. The processing of medical cannabis has become so precise and scientific that now the individual cannabinoids found in cannabis can be separated from the plant and processed individually into oils. This allows oil to be created that is comprised entirely of just THC or entirely of just CBD, or also a hybrid blended of the two, meaning a 50-50 mixture of THC and CBD, or even other combinations of THC and CBD.
Now that you know a little bit more of how the oils are made, let's teach you a little bit how they are consumed medically by patients. Oil is one of the most important forms of cannabis allowed because of how versatile it can be used. Oils are more commonly packaged in a dropper or syringe type for more precise dosing, and this allows consumption orally. Oil can be taken orally, or it can be mixed with foods to mask the strong taste and odor. Again, this aids in more accurate dosing. The last way oil can be used is for vaporization. Once the oil is processed, there are methods that can be used to make the oil more liquidy. Vaporizing is a great way for patients to obtain more relief rather than waiting for the effects to take place during ingesting of cannabis oil.
One of the most important things to keep in mind about the oils, especially when first beginning the use of them, is that they are far stronger forms because the cannabinoids are so much more concentrated than they are on the cannabis flower itself. 1 ounce of raw cannabis flower typically produces just 3 or 4 grams of the cannabis oil. However, these strong concentrations are required in order to treat many of the more serious conditions, especially like cancer, HIV, epilepsy, and other medical illnesses. The use of these oils is commonly associated with the most serious conditions like previously mentioned, as well as epilepsy and seizure disorders. And the seizure disorders, especially in children, and the use of oils in treating them is becoming mainstream, and that's really what's driving the research factor and the proof factor of medical cannabis's benefits.
Another form of cannabis that's beginning to rise throughout and popularity throughout the industry is topical cannabis, such as creams, ointments, and gels. These can be made from any different solutions, but the most common would be coconut oil. Cannabis can be processed and infused into the coconut oil. The coconut oil can then be applied to the surface of the body or affected area where the pain is, for relief in muscles and joints. Conditions like MS, chronic pain, nerve pain, and others are the best ways for using and treating these conditions through topical creams with medical cannabis. This is especially important to new patients who have never used cannabis before and are totally unfamiliar with its effects.
Coconut oil can also be used versatilely. Like vegetable oil, olive oil, butter, coconut oil can be used in cooking, and all three oils can be just as easily infused with medical cannabis, which can be then used to cook with just about anything and turn any dish into an easily digestible medicated meal. Pre-made edibles cannot be sold under the PA law, but these types of cooking oils may be available in order for patients to utilize them when cooking at home for easier consumption.
These acceptable forms of medical cannabis, again, can treat multiple different conditions. So it may take some experimentations by the individual patient to really nail down their exact dose and what they're able to handle and what brings them relief. It's important to remember, though, when you're experimenting with these forms, it can be made much stronger through raw plant material itself. So start slow. That's the key. Start slow and then begin to build yourself up gradually. It's certainly easier to take a smaller dose to start and then not feel much of effect, and then add to it as needed to feel that relief throughout the day, throughout the night, allow you to sleep a little bit better. The worst case scenario would be to take too much cannabis. You cannot overdose on cannabis, but if you were to take too much, it would result in an uncomfortable experience. The worst case scenario would be if you were to over-medicate yourself on medical cannabis, is you would fall asleep and have a great deep sleep. You would wake up. This would not happen if you were taking Vitakin. So just remember to be cautious when you first begin medicating with cannabis.
And again, when dispensaries are open, you will have doctors and nurses within the dispensaries who will help guide you, especially the first timers who are totally new to medical cannabis, as well as the different forms of medical cannabis that can be used for ingestion. Consult with your doctor, consult with your dispensary owner. They'll help assist you in making your purchase and help assist you in dosing and going forward from there. And, you know, this is new to a lot of people, so feel free to continue the research. There's plenty of research out there on the different forms of cannabis, how they're made, how they can be ingested, and what medical conditions they work for. If you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out. Once again, KeystoneCompassionate@gmail.com. Like the video, share the video, spread it to friends, family, physicians, clinicians, and stay tuned for more information with the Keystone Cannabis Conversation. I'm Joe Cringer.
And I'm Jerry Feisner.
Thanks for watching.